Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the BAMcast. I'm your host, Baker Shields, and it is my goal to help you to learn, grow, and evolve by any means necessary. Today's episode, we have Alfonso Lopez. Expect to learn about his journey losing over 100 pounds and competing in a bodybuilding show, how he played an instrumental role in 2 wildly successful startups in the health and fitness and nutrition space, and a ton more about self-improvement, bodybuilding, mindset, development, how you can kind of just get better in all areas of life. He is an absolute quote fiend, and it was great for me. From my perspective, it was extremely fun to just go back and forth with him on our quotes and just kind of talk about the topic of self-development altogether. It's actually his birthday, so I know for his birthday, speaking for him, he would really like it if you guys would like this video, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, follow the show if you're watching on any type of an audio platform, and leave it a review if you guys get something out of it. Without further ado, let's hop right in. All right, Alfonso Lopez. What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
I am good. Happy freaking birthday. As of the day we're recording this, it is your 26th birthday. How do you feel?
Uh, I feel older. I definitely feel
Yeah.
like as you get older, like you past 25, it's just I don't like calling it downhill, but like each birthday just isn't like this major celebration, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, another day, and everyone's texting me, which I'm really grateful for, but it's just like another
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like birthdays kind of lose their luster as you get older, and it's just kind of like it becomes another day. But you were telling me you have a pretty cool trip planned
Yeah,
tomorrow.
going to uh going to LA tomorrow.
Yeah.
Had a random plane ticket I need to use I had a plane ticket that I had last year that I canceled the trip on because a buddy was no longer going to be there, and I needed to use it before the end of the year. So LA just kind of came to mind. Plus the total cost of the flight was pretty cheap compared to other areas. So I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna take advantage of this and then go from there. So don't even have my Airbnb picked out yet. We're just kind of winging it.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
you're. I feel like you did that back in Wisconsin when we traveled for the CrossFit Games, and then you kind of end up like because of a plane mishap, you were kind of ended up stuck there, and you just like you walked around the city of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin for I don't even know. You had like 30,000 steps, and you just walked around for a day
Bro,
basically.
for 4 hours,
But you're just
man.
like that takes a certain level of just like self confidence and just curiosity and everything just to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go on my own and go explore and have fun.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily a story of my life, but I definitely take that approach to a lot of things. So
Yeah,
it just kind of is what it is. I, I
that's
like
awesome.
I like uncertainty, so it's cool.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, I kind of want to go into, if it's cool with you, a little bit about our story, right? Kind of how we met, and then we can kind of talk about everything that you got going on. But I don't know if you remember this, but I remember specifically from my perspective the day that we met. It was at Kaizen, the
Yeah.
gym in Norman, Oklahoma. You had a booth set up for Triad. You were doing
Mhm.
supplement samples,
Yeah.
and you kind of like I remember saying hi and kind of like talking like a little bit of small talk, and then the thing that stood out to me, and then why I remember that day so clearly is you said something to me about my apparel brand that I had ran like 4 years prior,
Mhm.
that I started like in high school, and you're like you're the guy that owned All Glory Apparel, right? And I was like, yeah, like I've never been recognized for that. That was such a that venture was honestly like such a flop for me that I was just like, whoa, wow, like I can't believe you know that. Yeah, my name's Baker, and then we just kind of met. And do you remember that at all?
You know what's crazy is I actually don't remember that. I do remember finding you on social media and kind of knowing who you are, but never like I actually met you and I knew you
Yeah,
had it, but I do not remember that interaction.
yeah, I remember it so clearly just because it's like I had been recognized not like from other things, right? Like friends of friends and stuff like that. But that was such a specific thing that I was like, how in the world does this guy know that I did that? So that always stuck out to me. But from literally day one, like you and I feel like have always been able to connect on the areas of entrepreneurship and self improvement.
Hmm.
And it's always been kind of just as unspoken. We've gotten a lot closer, I feel like, over the last year and a half.
Hmm.
But it's always been kind of this unspoken thing where it's, we send each other something or a podcast here and there or a quote or something. And so I think it's going to be really cool to kind of talk through everything that you've accomplished, because I honestly don't know a ton outside of what we've talked about with your story. And we did a group call for the BAM Coalition where you came on as a guest speaker, and people loved it. And everyone even said, like, you guys should start a podcast together. So hopefully people enjoy
Yeah.
this one to that same level. But I want to start out, dude, just talking about a little bit about you, a little bit about your journey. And let's start off with, you lost, if I'm not mistaken, a little over 80 pounds, or right at 80 pounds.
I lost over 100. Yeah.
Jeez. Talk
Yeah.
about
So
that, man. Talk about what that looks like.
yeah. So, dude, it's so weird when I talk about it because half the time, honestly, I just forget. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. It's just like it's such a random thing, but essentially, I just grew up overweight. My entire life was like the fat kid. So, um, post high school, I was still the fat kid. I played football all of high school, so like I was always doing some type of exercise and movement, and even post football, I was still exercising. The biggest thing is that I wasn't like, I was still eating the way that I normally would while playing football, but obviously when you're doing that and you're not like running, doing any cardio, you're just weightlifting, like you're gonna get pretty big pretty quick. So essentially, post high school, I kind of ballooned up to like 287 pounds. Like that's the last time I remember like physically weighing myself, and I was like, holy shit, like I'm really big, and I felt really embarrassed and a lot of shame from it. And because of that, I actually just stopped weighing myself as a whole. And I know for sure that like I definitely climbed into the 290s, 299, 300.
Yeah.
I just couldn't like physically look at the scale because I knew how embarrassed I would feel. So essentially, on and on my entire life, I tried to lose weight. Like it's always just been like this thing that I've wanted to do because, like I said, I grew up the fat and out of shape kid. Well, long story short, I'm going into my freshman year of college. I'm with this girl at this time. I feel like this is how every weight loss story goes.
Yep.
But
Yep.
she's going to a different college. I'm still living at home, and she's living life, and like I'm just kind of like in this weird in between area. Really don't know who I am. She breaks up with me, and for some reason, like that breakup just like floored me. Not because of her, because we were breaking up. I was more upset because I just didn't know who I was. So I essentially just went on this like huge self improvement journey and like lost about 100 pounds, man, within like a 12-month time frame. Like I really lost a ton of weight from about August to February is when I lost about 80 pounds, so majority of the weight. I will say I did it in the most unhealthiest way you could possibly think of, like complete starvation.
Yeah.
But I was desperate to do it. So I was just like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do. Like I would weigh myself every day. And if I didn't weigh less than what I weighed the day before, I would just eat less. So
Mhm.
essentially, once you do that over a long period of time, you're essentially eating like nothing.
Yep.
I would run a mile before I worked out, and then I would work out, and then would run another mile, and then I would go home. I would eat, maybe, maybe not. Really couldn't tell you. And I essentially would do that until I got, relatively close to like 210 pounds from all the way from like almost 300 to 210. And then I finally like reached out to people to like get help to finally like finish that
Yeah.
towards the end of like my freshman going into my sophomore year of college. So yeah, that's essentially how I lost weight, is in the most unhealthiest way possible. But I knew my life kind of depended on it, so I took it very serious and I just went all in on it and did not do anything else but that.
And you went on that huge weight loss journey, right? And
Mhm.
then you prepped as well. And this is kind of when we were starting to get to know each other.
Yeah.
When did the prep kind of come into that weight loss journey? What was the timeline there?
Dude, so it's interesting, man. So I have this photo on my phone. I won't be able to find it because it's kind of way back. But I remember specifically I was starting to like cover that line between 200, 202, 199, like just like really at the 200s now. And I was like, hell, like, dude, I haven't seen this number since, I have not seen 200 since maybe the fifth grade, like
Yeah.
full transparency. That's just what it was. And I remember one day, man, towards the summertime, I got into like this really good routine where like I was hitting it hard. I was running it. I was doing 30 minutes of cardio every morning. I was training every day. And then I would go home and run a mile and a half around this loop around my parents' house because I was home for the summer every night. And I did it so many times that I finally got myself to like 199, 198. And one day I woke up And I remember like going to bed, like after running this mile and a half, like sweating my ass off, just sleeping on my parents' couch, which probably gonna be pissed once I tell them that. But I remember waking up and I hit 197. And for some reason at 199, 198, it didn't click. But from 197, I remember looking at the scale, taking the photo in the mirror, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, excuse my language, but I was like, holy fuck, like you did it.
Yeah.
If you did this, like you can do anything now. So in
Hmm.
my mind, I was just like, well, what's next? You know, like what do you want to do now? And I don't know where this thought came from, but to me it was just like, let's do a bodybuilding show. Like it just sounded like so intriguing. So I told my mom for some reason, I was like, I'm gonna do a bodybuilding show now. She was like, well, go and do it. So I definitely, thought I was gonna compete like later that year, which was in 2018 or maybe 2017. 2017, I believe, is when it was. But this is actually when kind of transitioned to another story. But whenever I drove up the Triad, because they were kind of new and around in the area, and they actually recommended me my first bodybuilding coach, and I essentially worked with him. And that is kind of how I got into the world of competing. It took me a few years to finally compete, but that is
Yeah.
how I kind of got started within that.
That's crazy. I know I've talked about, I believe it was episode 1. So you're gonna be episode 4.
Nice.
Launching on this Monday, last second, kind of under the radar podcast episode. So I appreciate you being so flexible with me. But I
Yeah, of
remember
course.
talking on episode 1, and it's something that it also struck me about my kind of prep was you learn just inherently through undertaking any type of big journey with your health and fitness. You learn this equation, I call it, like the equation basically, that
Hmm.
hard work and consistency over time yields results,
Hmm.
right? And I feel like so many people never stick to something long enough to figure out the consistency portion. They might work hard here and there, but to figure out the consistency portion, so they never end up like completing the equation and figuring out that equation translates to everything in life. Because
Hmm.
I remember back in basketball, right? I was always training for basketball. Like I was doing the extra lifting workouts. I was writing programming, basketball programming for my teammates and doing all my own. I was getting up at 5 a.m. every morning in high school and going and getting shots up before most of the people in the entire high school were even awake yet, like including the staff, because I had a key to the gym. And I my performance the year that I started doing that from the previous year just like skyrocketed. And it was
Hmm.
like I was in there every day all summer. I was in there every day preseason, and then I started to just play better. And I
Hmm.
remember thinking at some point that that equation is there. And like now that I have that and I'm armed with that, I can take that into bodybuilding. I can take that into business and being an entrepreneur. I can take that into my relationships and everything else that I kind of encounter. And so it's funny that you explained it in a very similar way to what I've always kind of explained it as, but you learning that I could do this. Like I lost 100 pounds by being consistent and putting in the work and doing this every single day.
Hmm.
Now I can do anything,
Hmm.
and that's such a powerful feeling.
Yeah,
What did that feel like whenever you kind of got to that point?
dude. Honestly, you know, I don't know. I don't know exactly how I felt, but I knew I felt like unstoppable. Like I
Yeah,
just felt like, because my weight loss journey wasn't just like, oh, one summer gained 100 pounds. My weight loss journey was like, I've been the fat and out of shape kid my entire life. Like I was
yeah,
trying to lose weight as a 10-year-old. Like
yep,
I was 10, 11 years old, like journaling what I was eating at my grandma's house, which was nothing but like beans and rice, but
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah,
But I just remember, man, like, after so long, like 7, 8 years of trying to like do this, that I finally did it. So to me, it was just kind of like, well, if I can do this now, I can do anything. So I was like gun ho about like anything. And it felt good to finally like just be confident about myself, man, and feel good in my own skin and like be proud of the person that I see in the mirror and know that like whatever comes my way, at least I can say I did this and finally completed this, and like I'm okay with that.
yeah. And I think that's huge, and I think it also explains why you've gone on to do so much and be so instrumental in so many in everything that you've pretty much set out to do in life. Honestly, like it's been awesome to just watch you attack these things. Um, but I know that you mentioned that part of this was happening while you were in college.
Hmm.
I also know that you made a pretty big decision while you were in college. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that because I didn't have the guts to make that decision.
Yeah, man, college. So essentially, the big decision was like I dropped out of college. So Essentially throughout college, man, I think saying this first, like you and I are very similar. I think a lot more similar than we realize because like
Yeah.
everything you were saying about basketball, like waking up early, like that's how I was. Like I was
Hmm.
always like wake up early, train harder, like do more than everyone else. The more reps I get in, the better I'm gonna be. Because I also knew that like I played football, so like I wasn't like the biggest kid. Like I'm still 5'7". I'm not the strongest. I'm not the fastest. So I kind of knew that like my work ethic had to outperform everyone.
Yep.
And I also knew like this is really random, but like my dad would wake up early for work, so like I would always try to like beat my dad. So I feel like you and I are very similar in that aspect. But
Yeah.
essentially, when I got to college, man, like I just didn't fit in. Like I just didn't do what everyone else is doing. I didn't party. I didn't drink. I didn't go to football games. Like I went to maybe one or two. I had season tickets, and I would just end up selling those season tickets and then go to work because I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods in Moore. And during game days, man, like no one was there. So I was just like on the clock watching football essentially just from at work, but still getting paid.
Yeah.
So I just didn't fit in. I wasn't in a Greek life, wasn't an athlete. So I feel like if you're not in those two things, it's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And
It's tough, especially at OU.
yeah, absolutely, man.
It's everything there.
100%. So, I essentially, man, also got really into fitness. Like, obviously I lost 100 pounds. I started working with the coach. So I was like really into bodybuilding. And around this time too, like YouTube, is really starting to pop off. Like the 2016, 2015, 2017 era of YouTube, man, like fitness wise was like the shit. Like this
It
is
was.
when Christian was like blowing up. A lot of other people, man, within the space were blowing up. And around this time as well as I'm getting a lot more into personal development and like Andy Frisella and the MFCEO podcast and reading books and like mindset and visualization and just like really like working on myself. Like not like even when I lost 100 pounds, it wasn't like, oh, I feel confident. Like, let's go talk to girls. I was just like, nah, man, like, like screw all that. Like I'm all in on like this one thing.
Yeah.
And I essentially just continue to work on myself more and more and more. And one day I feel like during college, I just felt like I was like, man, I feel like I'm like wasting my time here. I was like, there's people on the internet making like 40K a month, 50K a month, like just being themselves and like fitness and like helping other people and like content creation. And I was just like, why can't I like do that? Like, why can't I figure out like how to do that now? Like what's holding me back? And long story short, I was in my second semester, my sophomore year, man. Well, I'll backtrack. My first semester, my sophomore year, the semester ends, and I get a 69.7 in chemistry. And essentially got a C. Like they passed me with a C, and if I would have got a D, I would have dropped out then. But they gave me a C, so I was like, you know what? We passed this class. Let's just go on to the next semester. And the next semester, I'm taking anatomy, which you don't know. Anatomy at OU is like the hardest class ever. Like they
Yeah.
tell you if you have a life, like don't have one.
Yeah.
And
That's what
they
they
send
tell
you
you
like
day
10
one.
emails. Yeah, like
Yep.
10 emails before the class even starts. And I was like, well, I'm not going to give up working. I'm not going to give up bodybuilding. And I'm not going to give up working on myself because like I'm seeing more return on this work on myself than I am actually school. So like, I'm going to keep doing this. And around the third test that we had within anatomy, I started to realize like, holy shit, man, like, on the platform they use, you can plug in your grades in the future to see what you need to make to make a certain grade.
Yeah.
Well, mine was like, you need to make a straight 100s on every practical and every lab exam and every exam within the classroom to make even just a 70%.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just gonna be real. Like, I ain't gonna make that. So I need to figure something else out. And me realizing that I wasn't gonna pass this class for some reason was like my permission slip to drop out of college and go all in on what it is that I wanted to do, which was fitness. And that is what I did. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going, which is kind of a story within itself, man. But I just knew I had a calling. I knew I just wanted to help people and lift weights for a living. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's what I'm going to do. And I don't need this. I don't need this degree to get me to where I want to be.
What do you think that is? Because I've always had the same thing too, and I've chalked it up to like a superiority complex. Like most of us as entrepreneurs, I feel like have some sort of a superiority complex, meaning that I believe or you believe that we are capable of determining our own future. Like we have that internal locus of control of making that happen ourselves because we just believe in ourselves, right, to a certain extent. But also, if I'm being honest with myself, I have an internal belief that like I can accomplish this. I don't have the same belief in all other people. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like I've always believed that if I set my mind to this, I'm going to accomplish it, right?
absolutely.
So I don't necessarily, oh, I'm not very risk averse, right? Because I always believe my parachute's me. I'm the X factor. You know what I mean? And like what you're describing is that. It's like I'm gonna go all in this thing, and screw whatever could happen in the future. Like I can make this happen, and I'm gonna make this big risk right now because I just know I'm gonna be able to do it. And you've done it, right? And I've done it to this, maybe not great, right? But we've done it to this point. We're here. You know what I mean? So what do you think that is that makes us risk averse? Do you think it's a superiority complex, or what's your take on that?
Man, that's an interesting one because I don't know because I've had it like my entire life. Like it's
Same.
always just been like I've always even when I didn't have confidence in myself and like this belief, when I was the fat and out of shape kid, I always just felt like I was an underdog and like I was willing to outwork everyone. I was
Yeah.
willing to do more than everyone. I was willing to, get in more reps and be where other people weren't. And like I just always knew that I was willing to bet on myself, and always knew that I would have faith and that God would lead me to where I needed to be, and that things would turn out in my favor. Like I've always, you kind of touched on like me being a big quote guy, and it's like I am without a doubt, a big quote guy. And one quote that comes to mind quite a bit is like, if God is for you, then like who can be against you? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
obviously that's in the Bible. So I always just had that mindset, man, and I was just like that was always giving me the confidence and belief to go out and do these things, because if I didn't have that, then I probably wouldn't have done those things.
Yeah. And I think honestly that was what gave me, in the opposite perspective, that gave me the permission, right, to stay in school.
Mm-hmm.
Because for whatever reason, my brain just worked in the way where it was, if I had to figure out an entire class 3 days before the final just to get like an A or a B, I could do that, which gave me the permission to slack off and not really care about school. But it also didn't give me enough of a pain point, right, to be like, I'm out of this, I'm done. Because it was like, why, like, I just got to get a couple more A's and then I'm out, right? Like it's such a, I don't know, I was a world class procrastinator, I can tell you that much. And it gave me, but it also made me crave stimulation elsewhere. It made me crave, like, how can I truly challenge myself? Because this isn't doing it for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I remember thinking in a lot of my entrepreneurship classes, being an entrepreneurship major, like, I'm learning all these things that we're talking about in class theoretically. I'm learning them on a real, points and or checks and balances sheets. Like I'm really doing this accounting wise for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going through profit and loss statements and trying to figure out how I can make my ads perform better. Like I'm doing all of these things at a small
Mm-hmm.
scale, albeit, right? But like I'm learning this through doing it myself, and that's fun because I'm actually risking real world money. Like I'm risking my own time, my own efforts. I'm doing all this in just a perspective of, like, we're talking about it theoretically here, which is like all fine and dandy, and you can learn some stuff from that. But like in my perspective, I was just like, why should I even care about the theoretical side of things when I can learn more doing this every night?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's a weird kind of concept.
No, and dude, there's a lot of truth to that, man, because I'm just gonna be honest. Like I was listening to Andy Frisella, at 18 years old, and
Yep.
I was doing the things that he was saying and seeing more of a return on investment than I was like in school.
Yeah.
So, a big issue that I had, man, like this is just an example, is that I was the extremely shy, introverted kid. Like I didn't have the confidence. And one day, my dad like ripped me a new one essentially. He was like, "Hey, bro, like if you don't get over the shyness and this introvert, like it's gonna fucking kill you." And I was just
Yeah.
like, and I will say, like, me and my dad have this interesting relationship where, like, he'll say something to me and I take it extremely personal, but, like, in a
Yeah.
good way, where I'm like, who's this guy I think he's talking to? And I remember listening to Andy Frisella and him giving, like, examples of how to, like, build your confidence when it comes to talking to people
Hmm.
and different key points to do and different steps. And I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods, and I was, like, on my weight loss journey, on this mental journey, and, like, learning these things. And I would do things that he said that would help me be more confident with speaking to people. I would take more customers. If I was going to the bathroom, if I saw a customer, I would ask them if they needed anything. And I continued to build the skill, and I actually continue to see like a return on investment. Like I'm getting paid more now. I'm getting random tips from people that, help me out. $100 every once in a while goes a long ways. And I just felt like, man, I was learning more just by doing things and actually being in the arena instead of just like reading a book. Like
Yeah.
instead of just like looking at a theory, I was actually learning information and doing something with it. And that's also just how I learn. Like you were talking about school. Like I've never been the best at school. Like I've always struggled with school. In the 8th grade, I had a 4th grade reading level. I almost failed the 7th grade. I skated by in high school, did not try. I made a 20 on my ACT, maybe a 21. The only reason why I got into college is because my girlfriend at the time did my essay for me. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have gotten in. And even when I did get in, I was on like academic probation. So it's
Yeah.
like I've never have been a sit down and learn like that. I've always been sit down and like do things with my hands, get feedback, and then go from there. So
Yeah.
it's all about like how do you learn, and that's just kind of like the way that I've always have learned.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to see the opposite perspectives of that, but also see the similarities because my entire prep, the only thing that I listened to every day in the gym and every day in between my workouts and during, even during school and class a lot of times, I was only listening to the MFCEO project. Like I probably listened to all 300 and whatever it was, 70 episodes over the course of
100%, bro.
my 7-month prep
Yeah.
for my bodybuilding show. And
Well,
that's where I was learning a ton of my stuff too.
yeah, and it's also like there's this good quote. It's like, and like I hope when I say this, I don't mean it in any disrespectful way towards teachers, towards professors, towards anyone. But
Hmm.
it's like, don't take advice from people who don't live a life how you would want yours to look like. So I remember just sitting in this classroom and I was like, man, this teacher doesn't even like, he's not teaching me the things that I actually want to know. So like, why am I even here? Like I had an econ professor that would constantly come in stone, talk about how much he hated his life and how he didn't want to be here. And I was like, why the fuck am I learning from this guy when
Yeah.
doesn't even want to be here? Like it just didn't make sense to me. And I just started to like scratch my head more and more. And it's like, why don't I go learn from someone like Andy on that podcast, which was great, and actually do stuff and actually see a return instead of just like sitting in this classroom because it's just not how I learn.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about you starting out at Dick's Sporting Goods. I know from there you kind of transitioned into what you've already mentioned, Triad,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's crazy to see what Kevin and Thomas and all those
Yeah.
guys have built, and Anthony, and it's been awesome to watch. But you were very instrumental in the beginning of that
Yeah.
whole community and just empire that it kind of has become now. Talk about your experience there.
Uh,
For those of you guys that don't know, Triad is a supplement store, and now it's a chain technically in Oklahoma, so in
yeah.
the greater OKC, Yukon, Edmond area.
Yeah. Dude, they're crushing, man. And like that entire venture, man, was like one of the wildest times in my life. I can't lie. It was by far one of the funnest times in my life as well. I'm not saying I don't have fun now, man, but when you're 20, 21, 22, just working with a group of 20-year-olds, like trying to get a business off the ground, it is by far like one of the funnest times and also the most stressful times.
Yeah,
But overall, man, like my time there was just like amazing. Like I have two regrets when it comes to Triad. One, I wish I would have went harder, and two, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. And the reason why I say that is because I was going as hard as I could, but since there was like no guaranteed of success, I felt like I was very scared and timid at times. So like I was like really nervous. And what I mean by I wish I would have enjoyed it more, since we didn't know that we would eventually get it running the way that it needed to, it was really hard to like enjoy the moments because there was like no guarantee. Like every day was like work some more, go do this thing, take no days off. Like you're working 6-7 days a week minimum. You're always on social media. So I just had this thing where like, man, I wish I would have enjoyed that time a lot more because with that group of guys, man, especially in the beginning, it was just so special. It was just such a close knit group of guys just trying to make something happen
yeah,
that it looking back, I just wish I would have been like, damn, like stoke this in because it's not going to be like this forever.
yeah. And so you came in. You were employee number what?
Technically number 2, there was a guy there before, but he didn't work out. So
Gotcha. So
I
you were
came
employee
in, man.
number two,
Yeah.
and you were around at the very very beginning where it was literally it was you and Kevin, right?
It was me, Kevin, and Trace. Kevin wasn't even paying himself, and I was a part-time employee, and we could barely pay me. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
insane. And now they've got 3 locations,
hmm Yeah, they
and
got three, dude, and they got a supplement brand that's crushing too. So it's like
yeah,
it makes me happy just to see the progression within that company. And another thing that makes me happy is like going to Kevin's house because I
hmm
know how much work he's had to put in. Like Kevin truly taught me what it took to win. And I used to think that dude was crazy and was like a robot, but it is what was required in order to even get the business off the ground.
hmm
So everything, man, I take away is still a lot of the things that he taught me to this day, and I still use them. And I'm forever grateful for him and the things that he's done.
yeah, and he is an absolute killer. How do you pronounce his last name? Wilhite?
Will Hyde,
Okay, we want to make sure I give him a proper shout out. So Kevin Wilhite is who we're talking about, guys.
he's the
He's
man.
got his own podcast, and the dude is crushing it. But I know he talks about. I've heard him talk a lot about you and how instrumental you were in that phase of the business and just getting it up off the ground and making things go.
Yeah.
Um,
Did I
but
ever
from
tell you? Did I ever tell you how I got that job though?
maybe I don't know.
I
How
sent
did
an
you?
email.
No, tell me about it.
So this is a story.
Okay.
So one day, man, this is about maybe a month and a half before I was going to drop out of college. So maybe I still have the email on file too. Like sometimes I even I look back and I look at it. And
Yeah.
one day during the library, man, I was studying. Around this time, I was kind of tired of school. Like I knew anatomy was going to whoop my ass, and I was just like, man, like I got to figure something out. So one day I'm sitting in the library and I'm scrolling through my phone. I remember scrolling through Instagram and I run by Triad and I see that they're hiring employees. Like
hmm
not like they made a post like, "Hey, we're hiring," but they had hired 2 guys. And I thought to myself, well, if they're hiring employees, like that must mean that they're doing really well. So I was like, man, like this is a perfect time to like maybe shoot them an email and be like, "Hey, man, like have you guys ever thought about opening a location in Norman?" So I remember sitting down and I'm typing out this email and I'm like, "Hey man, it's this kid, you guys helped me like lose 100 pounds. Like you guys have like really changed the trajectory of my life because through there, I actually found Andy Frisella through First Form." So
Yeah.
like that was how I found the podcast. They gave me some nutritional advice, man, that really helped me out towards the end of my weight loss journey that really set me up for success. And they had just, really made a big impact on my life. Especially Kevin and like one of the original group of owners, Vincent. And I'm sitting there typing up this email like, "Hey, I haven't been there in a while because I'm in Norman and they're in North Oklahoma City, essentially Edmond, about an hour away." And I'm typing out this email and I say, "Hey, if you guys ever think about opening a store in Norman, like let me know. I would love to help in any type of way. Even if you need help with the first location, like let me know. I'm always available to help out." Because I knew where those guys came from. I knew their background. I kind of knew their history of where they were before. So I
Yeah.
understood like it was a very, very valuable opportunity. Long story short, about a month later, I decided to drop out of college, and I was like, I'm just, I'm done with college. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna go figure it out.
Yeah.
And whenever I dropped out of college, my parents made this agreement, like, "Hey, if you drop out, like you're done. Like we're cutting you off. Not like talking wise, but like financially, like you got to
Yeah.
figure it on your own." And I was like, "Oh shit, like I don't know what I'm gonna do." Ended up taking this job pulling parts for like car parts. It was like this massive warehouse, and I essentially worked there the first day. I hate it. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know how I got here. I had to leave Dick's Sporting Goods in order to take this job because it was a full-time job, and I was like, I'm just gonna take this job, get back on my feet, and then go from there. Second day comes, and I completely hate it. Just want to like cry because I'm like, how the hell did I end up here, right? I went
Yeah.
from like being in college with all my friends and like living this college lifestyle, like to my degree, to like just working a full-time job in a blink of an eye. I get to the third day and I have this like mental breakdown within like the middle of the warehouse, like by myself where no one can see me, and I'm just like crying. And I was like, man, God, like all I wanted to do was like lift weights and help other people, like wasn't trying to do anything crazy. I definitely should have came up with a plan, but I just didn't know. And
Yeah.
I said, "Hey God, if you give me a chance, like I promise to do something good with it. Like I promise I'll tell everyone about your goodness. I promise I'll tell everyone about your grace. Like just give me a chance." And on the third day after we closed, I remember just like texting my boss, which I shouldn't have done. And I just told him like, "Hey man, I quit. I can't do this. Like this is just not for me. I definitely should have asked for a job description." It was a family member's, sort of like a friend, or don't know how to explain it, but it was through a family member how I got the job.
Gotcha.
And I had to text my boss back at Dick's Sporting Goods, like, "Hey, can you guys rehire me?" Because I would only had been gone for like 4 days. And he was like, "Yeah, bro, like Well, he didn't text me back that night, but the next day. And as I'm leaving the job from Oklahoma City to Norman, I remember just like crying. And for some reason, I don't remember. I don't know why I remember this part of the story. I remember listening to this podcast from Ed Milet called "Unlocking Your Success Code." It's a really good podcast that I think everyone should listen to.
Yeah.
And I remember it saying like him saying like, "Hey, everything in your life is a direct reflection of your thinking. If you don't like where you're at, like change your thoughts and it'll change your outside perspective, your world essentially." So I get back to Norman and I'm like wiping off my tears and I was like, you know what, man, like I'm gonna figure it out tomorrow because like I definitely failed. I fucked up. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I go upstairs. My roommates have no idea what's going on. They don't even know I've dropped out of college. And like it's been like maybe a month or so and like nobody knows. And I'm making dinner and they're all like having a good time. And I get this like Facebook ping, like ping. And I was like, man, like who messages me? Cause like I normally like never get Facebook messages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's Kevin. And he was like, hey, buddy, have you checked your email? And I remember him sending me that message and like my heart sank and I swiped up and clicked out and I clicked on my email. And he had actually sent me an email the day prior talking about, hey, would you ever think about working at Triad? Like we're growing and I don't plan on stopping this thing anytime soon. And we would love to have you on board. And that was sort of just like my opportunity in the sense of like, oh, like this is like my thing. Like this is it right here. And
Yeah.
ever since then, you know, I took the job and I worked there for 2 years, and 2.5 years later, man, in that email, I talked about opening a store in Norman. On my departure, that's what we did. Like we opened a store in Norman. So yeah, kind of crazy and a little all over the place, but that is just kind of like how I started working there, was just through by sending an email. And the funny thing is, the only reason why I sent that email is because growing up as a kid, my dad would always tell me like, you don't see opportunities with your eyes, you see them with your mind.
Yeah.
And he would tell me this because we'd go look at rental properties because he's in the real estate. And he'd be like, I'd buy that for 30, I put 20 in it. The equity would go up and I'd take that cash out and then go buy 2 more homes. And I was like, I remember being a kid and being like, what is this dude even talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I was 5, 7 years old. And I was definitely like, this fucking guy's crazy, but
Yeah.
it's something that always stuck with me. And it's the only reason why I decided to send that email, because I understood where Kevin was from and where it essentially originated from. And I was like, dude, I got to get in with these people because these people know what they're doing. They know how to help people. And if anything as well, like I'm a 20-year-old kid and like I don't have any responsibilities, and college will always be there. So like this is a time that I go for it now, and like that's what I did.
That's so insane. Yeah, I didn't know that story. And I didn't know that you ever worked anywhere else, right? Besides, I know at some point you mentioned Dick's Sporting Goods, but I didn't know that there was like an in between, and then like hey, can I come back to Dick's? And then this whole thing kind of just dropped on your lap, which is crazy. But it goes back to the not being risk averse, right? Like you just took leaps, and a lot of people don't, and you never know what could have happened. Like if you'd never sent that email, what would your life look like? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which is insane to think about, because Triad led into Pride Foods, which I kind of want to hop into next. You and Sean.
Yeah, man. So then, even going back into like the jumping thing, it's like, man, I left Triad. I left Triad at a very high note in my life, I guess you could say. Not like the peak, because it's never the case, but it was a very high note for me. We had just opened Norman. I had just competed. I just had like this big release. I was doing really well financially, just like as a 20-year-old kid. And I was like on top of the world. And I kind of knew in the back of my head that there would be another opportunity after Triad, because I actually put in about a 4-month notice, just like out of respect, because we were also building out the Norman location. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
But I essentially helped build that out, and I would departure after. And as I was doing that, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is another weird thing, but I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I wonder if Sean from Pride Foods would ever let me work the event for free, so that way I can travel, meet more people, network, like just grow. Because I understood the pool that Pride Foods had as it was just getting started. Like I'd be able to like really not just benefit like myself, but I would also be able to help him. And essentially 30 days after like leaving Triad, like Sean hit me up on my 23rd birthday and was like, hey, what do you think about coming on board? And that's essentially like what I've been doing ever since is, with Pride, is like, helping out with everything, learning, growing, and scaling, and everything else that come with it, man. So even just getting that job in itself was a pretty wild thing. But that's just what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah. And you you basically, I can't remember what the time period was, but you started with him,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was like COVID hit, and there was nothing in the warehouse because everything was sold out for like months, like pretty much right after signing on with them, right?
Yeah, bro. We had 2 pallets.
Yeah,
We had 2 pallets multiple times.
and that was the it's something that people don't think about a lot. I've only been in a scenario like that once or twice in business, but it was almost a situation where it's like too fast of growth to where it almost cannibalizes your business because you put yourself in a bind of where people are expecting you to be able to keep up with, you know, unlimited demand, or people are, you could be like a flash in the pan thing because then people think that you just close down because everything's like just down for months.
Yeah.
So talk about you join Pride, and then what happens? Like what started? You show up to like work day one, and then what were the events from there? Because I remember you guys told us about this in Wisconsin.
Fuck, man. Even looking back at that, like that's a dude. I remember just getting there and like I'm just packing orders. Right, I started out as a part-time employee as well, like nothing too crazy, and I'm packing orders. Like everything is relatively easy. Like he actually just restocked, I think maybe the week before, so like it was a big restock, so everything was back, and we're selling through product. I'm packing orders, and for some reason, dude, this is such a random thing. But we rent out the other side of the warehouse. So we have this side and then we have this side. We rent out this other side and we start doing fulfillment for HD Muscle. So we start shipping out HD Muscle's product. We start working with them on a handshake agreement, man, just like out of left field. And this is when I come on full time. So I'm essentially doing packing for Pride Foods and I'm doing packing for HD Muscle.
Yep.
Wild experience. We only did fulfillment for them for maybe a month or two just because we could not keep up with the demand of both. It also just the logistics weren't worked out correctly. So it's kind of a shit show in a way, but it was a great learning lesson, man. Like I learned that 2 month period, I learned so much about shipping supplements that like I would have never learned unless I did it myself.
Yeah.
So we finally get past that. And then now around this time, we're starting to like, I'm pretty sure we're starting to dwindle in inventory. So like we're running out of stock, we're running out of stock, we're running out of stock. Some of it being our own fault in the sense of like, we don't have the correct tracking information to like know, hey, you need to order now. And then a big reason why we ran out of stock is essentially because, I won't go into too much detail, but like our orders weren't being fulfilled. Our orders weren't being, put on the line to be ran. So then we weren't receiving any product. So then we're just selling whatever product we have. And then lo and behold, you get down to 2 pallets of strawberry banana, which aren't even like the most popular flavor, and people are buying it. But at the same time, it's like, oh shit, we don't have any product. And we're told, hey, we'll get product next week. We'll get product next week. We'll get product next week. Product doesn't show up for 4 months. It's like, what the fuck? And then it finally shows up, and then, you sell through. And then I'm pretty sure we repeated that cycle again.
You did. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we did that again, and we finally got product in, and then we sell through that. And it's like, we kind of introduced some new things within the brand as well, like the Pride Crispy Bars and then almond butters. And it's like, we have all this different stuff going on, but like everything is just kind of all over the place because if you run out of inventory for your business, you're essentially just running out of money. Like you're burning money by not having product in stock. So we were essentially burning money for like a really long time. I don't know the degree to it because I don't handle that side of the business.
Yeah.
But we were just like, burning money. And from my perspective, I'm just gonna be honest, I was just sitting in the warehouse like, man, I don't know what's going on. Like I just didn't fucking know like what was going on. I was just kind of like, everything seems to be going all right. We maybe have 20 orders throughout the day. Like that's good. I don't see a lot of things, so I don't know. So I was just kind of like working there, but also like trying to do my stuff as well. So it was an interesting time to like be in. And it's just crazy, man. Like it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember you guys telling us a lot of the stuff that I didn't know at the time. Whenever we traveled, all for those of you guys that don't know, Addison, my sister, and I, from episode 3, we traveled with Alfonso and Sean, the owner of Pride Foods, to the CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin, and worked that event for 7 days straight. And you guys filled this in. Yeah, it was a blast. We were completely delusional by the end of that, but it was a blast. But it was an awesome experience, and to get to just be around you guys and see the brand and see the inner workings and hear you guys' story, I thought was extremely cool. You alluded to your own stuff that you've been working on that whole time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your apparel brand, Let's Work.
Yeah. So, dude, let's work is essentially in 2020. I started to coach people, and I had this random idea for having T-shirts made, and I wanted like each client that came on board to like receive a T-shirt. Like I thought it was a really cool thing. I said hashtag
Yeah.
Let's Work, and I was like, dope, man. Like let's start selling T-shirts. So I started out with one T-shirt, and I think I actually started with three, gave those out, and there was kind of like a demand for them. So then, three T-shirts essentially turned into five turned into 15, 15 turned into 30, 30 turned into 50, 50 turned into 100. And lo and behold, before you know it, in the beginning of 2020, I just start slinging T-shirts.
Hmm.
Um, Ran a pre-order for the first one. I remember, running pre-orders through Venmo, and for $15 a shirt, I made like $800, and I felt like the richest kid in the world at
Yeah.
2022. And it was the first time I also like ever essentially like made my own money, so I just felt fucking cool.
Yeah.
Ended up running another pre-order and running up for like $1,200, and I essentially just kept running pre-orders and like stacking cash on top of each other. And I was also in prep, so I knew with me being in prep that one, I was going to be extremely disciplined, and two, I was going to have a lot of eyeballs on me because I knew it was a time in my life to go extremely hard. Around this time as well, it was the pandemic, so I also knew that everyone was like foot wasn't on the gas, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm going all in. Like this is the
Yeah.
time where most people are shutting down. Like if anything, the playing field right now is extremely even. So I'm just gonna go all in for the kill and figure it out. And essentially, I just started selling more and more T-shirts. I started having more and more drops, and I started to have a lot more success with it. Like I will say, like when I competed, I had a really big drop, and like it was the first time in my life, where I ever saw, $10,000 in my bank account. As a 22-year-old man, like that was a lot of money for me, considering
Absolutely.
in February I was paying for food with gas and quarters. So like to me, it was like a big deal. And I will say when you're that young and you don't know what to do, you definitely blow the money. But that's besides the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just started selling T-shirts, man, and at the time that I had this big release, I also left Triad. So I kind of like jumped all into this thing, which is kind of, if you see a theme here, it's like my personality. I'm just like
Yeah.
all in. I'll figure it out. Like I don't care. And essentially, man, just been like slanging merch ever since then. It's been a journey. It has taught me a lot about myself. Yeah, it has taught me a lot about myself. Like business will teach you more about yourself than probably anything else in this entire world, and it taught me a lot.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, e-com is hard. It's
Yeah.
really, really hard. You and I have talked a lot about, the equivalencies between Ubora and Let's Work. Let's Work's a much bigger company than Ubora, but it's e-com is, you talk about eating cost, right? Like every single thing that you sell there costs something tangible, right? So you have cost of goods sold, you have cost of shipping, right? And so like by the time you get to the end of selling one T-shirt, right, or one pair of dead grips, right, you're collecting a few bucks. You know what I
It's
mean?
huge.
So like you have to be selling at an unbelievable volume to make it to where you're able to pay yourself consistently, right? To be able to, if you're selling at that volume, you also probably need employees. So you're not going to be the first one that gets paid, right? So like it goes, it's just kind of like an endless cycle, and you have to grow an e-com business to such a big size for it to make sense, honestly, to like for you to continue to put all the time and effort it takes to run one. So I definitely can put myself in your shoes and see how difficult that is with an e-com business, because it's not for the faint of heart, for sure. I'm leaning more towards the service side of things these days myself.
Yeah, dude, it's interesting too, though, man. Because one, I will say, like you said, Let's Work was bigger than Ubora. Like, I highly doubt that. We're probably on the same field here, but it's it's interesting when I hear you say econ, because I never think in the sense of like e-commerce. I think in the sense of like I'm really good at shaking people's hands and getting to know people and like face to face interaction. Like
Yep.
contrary to popular belief, I don't like being on the internet. I'm just
Hmm.
really good at being myself, and I think that's why it works for
Yeah.
me sometimes. But a majority of my business through Let's Work was just built through me shaking hands. And
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
believe
have
that.
that perspective whenever I went full time into it because I was like, a majority all my business came through in person. It's like, yeah, I had a website up, I had an Instagram up, like, we had content up, but I wasn't thinking like e-commerce. I was thinking like, brick and mortar retail because like that's what I'm good at. Like that's my
Yeah,
skill set. So like me jumping straight into it was like a rude awakening because I was like, I don't know what ads are. I don't know what email campaigns are. I don't know what the fuck this ROI return on
yep,
ad is. Like I don't like ROAS. Like whenever we first started working with you guys, or we
yeah,
used to like marketing stuff. X said ROAS or Mike, and I was just like, man, I don't even know what that word is. He was like,
yep,
return on ad spend, and then it's only if it's like 7%, it's great, and it's like, what? So like
yeah,
I had to like learn all these things as I was going, and obviously, man, with social media too, like social media is like this revolving door that's always somewhat changing or just
hmm,
revolving. You got to get better at reels. You got to get better at videos, and like you got to constantly improve your graphics and all these crazy things. And it's like, bro, I don't even know how to do that. I just know how to shake someone's hand and look them in the eyes and make best friends with them. And like, I can do that. But
yeah.
like, jumping straight into e-commerce, bro, was like 10 out of 10, not the smartest idea. But
It's very
it taught
tough.
me a lot. So it's like, you live and you learn and you take your losses and you keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it's that theme too. That hey, I'll figure it out. Right. That's something I think too. That it's a muscle you have to train
Yeah.
because I have people all the time, and I know you do too, that ask me, hey, how did you do this? How did you know how to do this? How did you find your supplier? How did you, launch your first website or make your first website? How did you learn how to do an ad? How did you? And it's like all of these different things. And at a certain point, you get pretty fed up with that question, the how did you thing, or how can I? Because it's like if you really wanted to figure out, you'd figure it out. No one sat. I didn't take a course on starting an e-commerce business. I didn't take a course on software for AR, right? Like I didn't take a course on. I mean, obviously you take a course on personal training, but running a personal training business,
A
right?
lot
Because there's a
different.
big difference between personal trainer and personal training business owner. That's a
Mhm.
big difference. One thing that we talk about a lot with AR, but no one helped me find my supplier. No one helped me find all these things or figure them out. I went through a long series of YouTube videos and Googling and trial and error and losing a ton of money and investing a ton of money and time and effort and pain, to figure things out. And you can't skip that part. You can get closer to it by utilizing mentors, and it sounds like you've done a fantastic job of that in your life. I know I have a lot of my successes to attribute to meeting people like a Sean, a Mike, the people that I've kind of encountered along the way. But it's you can skip some of the things just by knowing somebody like that and them helping you be like, hey, this is what I tried. I think you should start here. But you still have to learn a ton of that for yourself. And if you're ever going to grow, no one can hold your hand and help you through the entire thing. You have to be willing to put in the work, to fail, and to grow on your own. And I'll never understand the people that just want, by asking that question, you to just hand them that magic pill. Be like, hey, I figured it all out. Here's this one YouTube video that's going to make you thousands and thousands of dollars and have you be a successful company owner, right? It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And dude, what's even, this is like random, but like more conversation. Like, but what's frustrating is like, whenever you do take the time out of your day to like sit down and like tell people how to do something, like how'd you go about it, and like you should do this and this, and like don't make this mistake. You tell these people that, and then they turn around and just do nothing. It's like, bro, I can't help you now. Like
Yeah,
you just wasted my time, and two, it's like you're not even willing to take the initiative after knowing what I know and have told you to do anything with it. And I just think it's extremely disrespectful to like not do the things that people are trying to tell you, or somewhat take the advice and do something with it.
absolutely. And if you're gonna seek, that's the number one way also to get shut out by a mentor, right?
Mhm.
I've talked a ton about me reaching out to Mike and talking to him initially, right? I was willing to pay him whatever he wanted for his time just to literally speak to me because I knew I was gonna get value out of that conversation, right? Like I did the same thing when I was in school. I worked for another software startup back in school that I've never talked about that was working with government transparency, right? And it was like a video streaming service for governments and local city, state, county governments.
I had
And
no idea you did that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
nobody. I don't even think Kinsey knows that I did that, but I did it for a while,
That's
for like a
so
year and a
dope.
half.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like I just sought out these people and these opportunities because I knew that even in the gym, like I would seek out the biggest dude or the dude that looked like he was just training differently and be like, "Hey, can I work out with you?" Because you learn things by talking to these people, and it's so it's so discouraging and it's so unfulfilling now having the chance to maybe mentor some people here and there if you try to help and you try to mentor somebody and they don't take action, right?
Absolutely.
They don't run with it
Yeah.
because now you're like, I really like I can't help you now. Like you said, I don't want to because when you continue to gain this knowledge and this experience, it becomes valuable,
Yeah.
right? And most people that have some sort of valuable knowledge and experience, they want to pass it on. But
Mhm.
it also takes a special person to be able to execute when that's given.
Yeah.
And it's the worst feeling in the world whenever someone doesn't execute and then you see them in the same spot 6 months or a year down the road.
Yeah.
The worst
Now,
feeling.
yeah, let me ask you this. What has always made you drawn to ask people questions? Like I'm always curious to ask that question. Because most people don't ask. Like most people just assume to not ask and don't ask questions and they just kind of go on with their life. Like what made you decide like, hey, I'm gonna ask people questions?
I think it goes back to what you talked about with professors,
Hmm.
right? Like the one professor that I got pretty decently close to, and talked to more, and we would text it, and we still text occasionally, just on achievements and whatnot. It's a guy named Mike Beckham. He owns Simple Modern. You probably know Simple Modern, being in Oklahoma and in
Yeah.
OKC. Huge company, huge company. But he was a guest lecturer, or I don't know the word for it, but one of those professors that's not necessarily like a full time professor, but teaches a couple of courses.
Yeah.
So he did that at OU, and I always like everything that he said to me was gold forever because I knew he owned a huge business. He had exited a business for 7 or 8 figures before, and he just is somebody that's done it,
Yeah.
right? And I always just everything that he said to me was gospel because I knew this is a person that's doing what I want to do. I need to learn from that person. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And same thing with the first time I ever did it was at the gym talking to a guy named Matt Lauk, right? That was just training differently from everyone else, and you could tell his rests were intentional. You could tell that he was moving differently. His form looked different. It wasn't social hour for him in the gym, and I asked him to work out and see if he would be willing to just let me tag along for a workout, and he gave me a time and a date, and I guess most of the time whenever people would he would give them a time and a date, they wouldn't show up. So when I showed up, I could tell he was really surprised. He was like, "Sweet, let's do it." And then him and I became really great friends, and I learned a ton from him, just because I asked and then I also followed through and executed. And so he kind of took me under his wing, and I got a ton more value out of it
Hmm.
because I just put myself out there. And then it
Yeah.
happened again with that other software startup, and then it happened again with, Mike, right? Like after Sean said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy. He might be able to help you out." I don't go into it expecting any freebies or any handouts. I wanted to pay Mike whatever he wanted for our consult, and he ended up being like, "Dude, let's partner on this deal and let's make this happen." But it just comes with putting your ego or your pride aside and being like, if this person, I can go try to learn it all on my own and do it all on my own, and there's going to be a certain element of that. But this person's doing what I'm saying that I want to do. So who better to ask and learn from than the person that is doing it or has done it? And so it was
That's
just for
yeah.
me. I feel like I have a pretty big ego to my fault sometimes, a lot of times, but
Same.
it was putting it aside and just being like, I just want to be a sponge. Like, teach me, please. And people really respond to that.
Yeah, dude. People can tell when you're interested. Like people can tell when you care, and I think that's just it's yeah, man. That's just how it works, man. It's such a your answer was so solid. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you did the same thing with Kevin, right? Like you did the same thing with Sean, and it's you obviously you benefited greatly from both those
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think a big reason why I've done it, man, and I don't I give my dad a lot of credit, but sometimes I feel like he doesn't give himself credit. And one of the best things my dad did, man, is that my dad is not the smartest guy. Between him and my mom, they do very well. They own a ton of rental properties. They own a venue. But one of the things my dad can't do is he struggles to read and write. And he would always tell me this as a kid, and he'd be like, "Hey, man, like, I don't know how to do these things." And go out. He would be like, "Go ask someone that does and learn from them." He was like, "Go ask questions." He was like, "Ask why and ask how." He was like, "A lot of people will ask me why." And he would always say, people would ask me why, but they would never ask me how. And it was frustrating because if they would just ask me how, I would tell them. And I remember him just always telling me as a kid, in the sense of like, one, I can't believe this guy, because most dads, man, they'll never tell their kid to go listen to another man. My dad
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, bro, I'm not the best at this. Go find someone that can teach you. That way you can get better and then learn from there." And I was just fortunate enough to have a dad that would always push me in that right direction, because that is what I did with Try. Like I told him I would work for free, like whatever you need, like as long as I'm able to just be in the room, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to hear like your answer, because I feel like there's just a lot of similarities in the sense of like, yeah, man, just like putting your ego and pride aside and asking someone else and being like, "Hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you teach me?"
Yeah. 100%. It goes a long way with people, and I think everyone always gets it worked up in their head that their idols or their mentors or the people that they want to work with are out of reach, untouchable, that
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't be interested in talking to them. The reality is anyone that's achieved, any decent person that's achieved any level of success wants to help others get to the same level or beyond,
Right.
truly, because they
Right.
know how tough it is at all the levels below where they're at. They know how big of a struggle it is. So
Yeah.
reaching out or getting anything from those people, they want to help, but they want to help people that are worth helping. So you got to make yourself somebody that's worth helping.
Right. And even
I
I'm gonna
really
oh,
the only thing that I have left is I want to kind of do what we did on the big BAM team call that everyone seemed to like so much, which is
the
talk
quotes.
through a few of your quotes. Okay, and I've got four of yours lined up, and I've got four of mine lined up. Okay,
Okay.
now yours might be originals. Mine are definitely not all originals, so I want to preface that. I don't even know if any of these are originals, but I just jot down
Probably
quotes
not.
all the time in my notes, so I don't have any. I'm not a good job at not doing a good job at citing it. But I want to start with one of yours, and we can kind of do the same thing that we did on that call.
Okay.
Okay. So if you keep doing what you've been doing, you'll keep getting what you've been getting.
So do you want me to explain what this quote means or why I posted it?
Both.
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory in the sense of like, if you're fat and out of shape, like, well, if you keep eating the way you've been eating, like you're going to continue to be fat and out of shape. So like,
Yep.
nothing changes if nothing changes. So like, you need to change something to at least point you in the right direction. The reason why I posted that, which it's kind of weird, I always remember like why I post something, what triggers me to post it. My dad essentially like, won't get too much into it, but he like ripped me a new one. He was like, "You're acting like X, Y, and Z. This isn't normally like you. You need to pull your head out of your ass." And he was like, "You keep wearing the same jacket and you won't take it off." And
Those are
like
the
being
best
figurative
conversations.
about it. Yeah.
Best
And he was like,
conversations with your dad.
yeah, yeah. And he was like, "You need to learn how to take off this jacket and put it on a new one." And I was like, "Damn, like that's a lot of truth to it." So like that very next day, like I decided to put on a new jacket and make a different decision and move in a different direction in my life. And I just feel like oftentimes a lot of people end up doing nothing, which is worse than just doing something. It's like
Yep.
even if it's not in the direction you want to go, at least it's better than what it is that you're currently doing. Because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting, and what you have been getting has been shit. So just do something different, and something else will come from that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, one of mine. I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. I'd love to hear your 2 cents on that because I feel like it's kind of related.
Damn, that's a good one. I think, man, that just comes down to like setting the tone. It's like what will you accept and what will you not accept? And I think eliminating the things in your life that you just won't accept when it comes to your environment, and being an example of what you will accept. Like I think life is a mirror; it's not a window. So everything that's around you, that's within inside of you, is nothing but you're allowing. So if you allow that to continue, whether good or bad, like that is, it's up to you.
Yeah.
But what do you think of it though? Because that's a good one.
Well, I'm gonna go off on a little rant, and this is gonna be a good clip, I think. All right.
Let's hear it.
So, my my opinion on this one is that anyone I think that tells you that you can't manifest things in life doesn't believe in just science, really. Because my parallel to this one is there is study after study after study after study where there's always going to be a control, right? And then there's going to be the experiment, right? And a lot of times in the control group, what do? They give that group a placebo, right? What happens in most placebo contexts when everyone's been told that they're getting the same thing? A small amount and sometimes a big amount of the same result that they're testing for in the experiment ends up happening because these people think that they're getting this curing like thing. They think they're getting this, whether it's creatine and you're looking for muscle growth over time, right? Or whether it's, some disease that's looking to be cured. Or I saw one the other day on gluten intolerance, right? And they talked about how that gluten intolerance is a growing problem in the United States, and they controlled telling people what they were having the control and the experiment group both eat gluten, right? Or gluten. They were being told that they were eating gluten, and they all had symptoms of gluten intolerance, and not a single person, right, on the control group had gluten, but they all had the symptoms of gluten intolerance. So in their mind, just thinking that they were being exposed to this thing caused real physiological effects inside of their body, right? But it also goes for the benefit side. So like if you're being told that you're getting creatine and you think that this is growing, this is helping me, I'm doing this every day, this is going to be awesome, all the results that I'm going to get, you grow muscle at a faster rate than people that are not even thinking about creatine, that are not thinking about any of these things.
Right.
So what that tells me, right, and maybe I'm a little bit ignorant, but what that tells me is that the things that you think and the things that you allow inside that rent, right, and headspace inside of your head project into even your physiological effects, but at the very least, they project into your environment.
Right.
Right? So if you're telling yourself that you're an entrepreneur, you're going to create a huge business, you're going to be successful, you're going to do all these things, what are you looking for all day, every day? You're looking for opportunities to do what an entrepreneur does. You're looking for opportunities to grow as an entrepreneur. You're looking for opportunities to sell and to grow your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So to me, that quote, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. People that are products of their environment, they take everything that's happening externally and they let that affect them, right? And so now you have zero control. Everything and everyone else outside of you has control of your life. But if you control your environment, right? If that's a product of you, you have all the control in the world. You can do literally anything. You can put yourself anywhere, right? It's that external locus of control versus internal locus of control. So that was a lot longer rant than I intended it for it to be, but
Bro,
hopefully that makes sense.
you've been practicing that, haven't you? That was
I've been thinking
flawless.
about it a lot.
Dude,
I
you got to
have.
get that off your chest, my
I
guy.
did. I did.
That was good. I agree
Very
with
good.
everything you said. Absolutely. Don't be a victim.
All right. Yes. All right. Next for you. That which you do not hate, you eventually tolerate.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a touchy one because I probably won't go into detail like why I posted it, but I just think that it's pretty straight and clear. It's like you get out of life what you're willing to tolerate. So if what you're getting right now, it ties back to the first one. If what you're getting right now isn't what you want and it's pretty shitty, it's like you need to start doing something different. Like you need to demand more of yourself. You need to be more aggressive. You need to be more vocal. Like you need to do more with your life to put yourself in a better position so that way you stop getting what it is that you're getting. So I don't know. I feel like all the quotes I put are pretty straightforward, and it's like, man, like if you hate it, like if how do I explain it? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Don't
if it's
tolerate
a
bullshit.
minor inconvenience and you don't do something about it, right?
Yeah.
Most people treat their job for their entire lives as a minor inconvenience. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They don't like it, but they also don't hate it, so they keep doing it forever. And then by the end of, age 65, when it's time to retire, they look back and they're like, "Why? This was not the payoff that I thought it was going to be. Why did I put myself? That wasn't worth it."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a powerful quote. It's simply put, like you said, it's pretty self-explanatory. Terry. I don't know why I can't. That doesn't make sense to me right now.
Yeah.
Too many words. But if you can really internalize that and look at that in your own life, you're like, what am I tolerating right now? What's enough of an inconvenience to suck, and that I should do something about it? But it's not enough to where I am currently actively doing something about it.
Yeah, and I think, man, I'm pretty sure it's a Martin Luther King quote that I definitely stole from. But obviously, you can like take that quote and put it into everyday life, where a lot of people tolerate things and behaviors and actions not only from themselves but also other people that they shouldn't tolerate. And it's like the more and more the more and more you tolerate that, the thicker skin you build towards that. And sometimes it's a good thing, but I feel like a lot of times it's a bad thing because now you're letting these small things slide that shouldn't be sliding. And now you're building somewhat of resentment towards either someone or something when you need to just address the situation as a whole because it pissed you off in the beginning, get it over with, find a solution and a common ground, and then go from there.
Yeah, I love it. All right, one of mine. Don't bleed before you're cut.
What does that mean?
So to me, what that means is a lot of times, whether it's a situation that you are, I find this in my own life. If I think that a project is going to be a big, annoying, like huge project, or for instance, getting set up with my taxes, every year I get so much anxiety about starting that first text chain with my accountant and figuring out what all I'm going to have to pay and what all this looks like and what all documents I'm going to have to like pull together and like all of that stuff. But it never ends up being as bad as I make it out to be in my head, right? So that would be an example of bleeding before I'm cut. I'm putting this off and I'm avoiding it and I'm not doing anything about it, not taking action on something that isn't really probably even going to cut me, but it's prematurely just guessing that I'm going to be cut, so I'm going to go ahead and start bleeding.
That's really good. Like as soon as you started explaining it, I was like, oh, I get it. I say it to myself in a different way, and I'm pretty sure it's like just don't. Things are never as difficult as they seem. It's like
Yes.
just do the work. It's like we tend to suffer in our own imagination, where if you would just do what it is that you need to get done, you realize it's not as difficult as it seems. It's kind of like on the rear view, on the what mirror this is to your car. It's like objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. It's like, well, things aren't as difficult as they appear either.
Yes, absolutely. All right, back to you. People care more about how the message is delivered instead of the message itself.
Yeah, man, this is an interesting one because I feel like a lot of times, I mean, just like the quote goes, people care more about the message instead of the message itself. I have never been someone that has necessarily cared about how the message is delivered. I care more about someone being honest with me and just telling me the truth and what they think instead of beating around the bush. I'm not expecting you to be an asshole. I'm not expecting you to be any type of way towards me, but I am expecting you to be honesty. And sometimes that honesty is going to come across as being an ass or just kind of like, getting your shit together. And I feel like sometimes people just care too much about how the message is being delivered that they actually don't hear the message itself. And because of that, they don't ever get better. Like they don't ever make improvements. They don't ever move forward in their life and make progress because they're so caught up in what someone else said instead of actually taking the criticism that they're giving and moving forward with it. So obviously I feel like we're in an interesting time with our generation in the sense of like, you can't say certain things, you can't be a certain way, where I just tend to like not care. And I'm like, tell me what you think, be honest with me, and let's keep moving on the same boat because I'm not going to take it personal. It's like, if I know you're coming from a very genuine standpoint and you're truly trying to help me, it doesn't matter how you deliver the message, just tell me it. I won't take it personal and we'll get moving on this boat forward together.
Absolutely. It's just something that I've had to work on as I've kind of grown and matured for sure because I traditionally used to react emotionally in the moment. Like I'm somebody that can go from off to on super quick if I get struck in the right way, the right mood, all of that, right? And so it's taken a lot for me to. I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm more able to remove myself from the emotion of the situation to look at the context of what's happening and what should be done or said. Mm-hmm. And that's something again that you just kind of have to look internally about, and you have to think, am I getting mad because of how this makes me feel? Is this an ego thing? Or am I getting mad about what this person's actually trying to say to me or help me with? Are they coming from a perspective of trying to hurt, trying to cut, right? Or are they coming from a perspective of, I just need you to know this because this is going to be damaging for you if you don't get it addressed.
Right.
So it's
not only that, man, it's like, if you get that MO in the sense of people can't tell you anything, you get passed up on, you don't get opportunities, and you don't move forward, and like you don't want that.
Absolutely. All right, this one is from, let's see. Okay, this goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier with mentors. Everyone you know that's where you want to be figured this problem out. And you can substitute that for anything in life.
What do you think? Because I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like I said, it goes back to that chat with mentors. It's honestly, that's a very comforting quote that I like to go back to, because we all feel like our problems are the biggest, baddest, most complex, most earth-shattering thing that anyone's ever encountered, and it's very easy to think that way. But the people that we idolize and the people that we look up to and the people that we're trying to kind of become in life, that person encountered a version of this problem and they overcame it, and you can too.
Yeah.
So I like to tell myself that and remind myself of that, because it's like, now I don't feel like it's isolated. Right now I don't feel like it's unsolvable. Now I feel like this is something that if somebody else did it, again, that superiority complex, right? I can do this too. I can figure this out because there is a solution out there, and I know there is because other people have done it before me.
Not only that, it's like, I think Alex Hormozy says something along the lines of this, but like, this is what it takes. Like, that's been a phrase that has been ringing in my head like the past few weeks and months. Is like, this is just what it takes. Like, this is normal. Like, it's normal to like maybe not be able to like pay for this, or make this payment or something, like have this issue. Like, this is normal, and like that's okay. And I think giving yourself permission to realize that it's normal and that it's okay and you're going to get past it relieves a lot of stress and pressure with yourself, because you probably compare yourself to the external world and people on social media that you think have it all together when they really don't. Everyone goes through this difficult time and you just have to navigate it.
Love it. This is the last one for you, okay? This one's a little bit longer. If we truly wanted to help people, we would teach people how to think instead of what to think. You hit on this with your dad. 99% of people will never know how powerful they are because they were never taught how powerful their mind was. What a shame.
Yeah, man. And this, goes back into the main thought behind this, man, is definitely like the education system. Like, I definitely wasn't the smartest in school. I didn't perform the best, man. I just didn't do well within the education system. And I think a good quote that comes to mind whenever it comes to education is that if you judge a fish by ability to climb its tree, it will go its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of times, man, school and education, we put ourselves in this one bubble that really doesn't benefit everyone, because everyone has a different learning style and ability to learn. And I feel like a lot of times we just teach people this one thing, this one message over and over and over again, and we never truly develop people on how to think. And because of that, they're stuck what to think, and they never question their own thinking of how they even got this thinking. And I think you can also see this a lot, within politics as well. Is a lot of people don't ever question why it is they're thinking that the way that they're thinking, whether you're right or left, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Most people don't ever question why it is that they think the ways that they think. And I feel like we could truly help more people if we taught people how to think and understanding how powerful their mind is. Like you talked about manifestation earlier. I'm not talking about the manifestation where you just sit on your ass and you think something into the universe. I'm talking about the manifestation where you think about it, you come up like, okay, like that'd be really cool. Then you work your ass behind it, because there's a lot of power to that. It's like a lot of people ask them, it's just like, there's another phrase where a lot of people like to say, well, I can't afford that. It's like, well, if you say you can't afford that, you automatically shut down your brain on how to be able to afford that. Where if you would ask yourself, how can I afford this? Your mind goes into ways of creating possibilities on how you can. And because of that, you more than likely 9 out of 10 times figure out a way of how to afford it. If not, you move on to even something better than that. So I just feel like we do such a big disservice towards a large majority of the population. And because of that, a lot of people walk around feeling like they're stupid, when in reality they're not. They just weren't taught how to think correctly.
Yeah. And it's a true thing. If you want to figure it out, you will figure it out. And you have to get creative sometimes. You have to get novel, but it's there if you're willing to take on the challenge. And like I said with that earlier one, if everyone that's been where you want to be has figured it out too, and you can too.
Absolutely.
Last one I got. Are you familiar with the clip of Will Smith talking about how he's willing to die on a treadmill?
Yeah.
So that, I have always loved that clip so much. So my last quote that I included was, be willing to die on a treadmill.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like when I dropped out of college, I knew I had two options. Either I was going to die trying or I was going to succeed. So it's like, it's all in. Like you don't have another choice. Like it's either you're gonna die to make it come true or you're not. And it's pretty set straight. And if you're going against someone that has that mindset, good luck because you're more than likely going to lose. So that's what I think about it.
100%. And that's always kind of stuck with me because I've always felt that way. I've always felt that if it comes down to me and the other guy on the treadmill, right, or the other girl on the treadmill or whoever, right, that I'm competing with, it's not going to be me that falls off. I can tell you that, right? And that comes from, an endless amount of really building up that resilience, building up that equation that we hit on earlier, right? Of hard work and consistency over time. Because the route truly that we have chosen, the route that any other entrepreneur, right, or athlete for that matter has chosen, it's not easy.
No.
And it takes, like I talked about on my podcast with Mike, it takes a certain glutton for pain. Like it takes somebody that kind of enjoys a little bit of that abuse. You know what I mean? It takes somebody that thrives on the uncertainty, on the ups and the valleys, the highs and the lows, right? Like it takes somebody that is just willing to subject themselves to an abnormal, non-healthy amount of stress and anxiety and joy, right, in some of those cases. But it takes a certain special kind of person. But also, so does anything else in life that's worth pursuing.
Right. Absolutely, man. I mean, it's always like the thing about it as well. It's like you're already all in. Like you're gonna die one day, so might as well make the journey worth it.
Absolutely. Okay. The one last question that I'll ask you, that I'm asking every single guest on the BAMcast, is, what are you going to accomplish by any means necessary in your own life?
I don't know. Part of me wants to give you like a vague answer, like accomplishing all my goals and dreams.
Yeah.
But I think one big thing, man, that like I'm going to accomplish by any means necessary is just becoming the best version of myself every single day, like no matter what. I think that's something that is very important to me. I was talking to someone earlier today how there's this Kobe video that talks about how, the dream is the championships, the endorsements, the rings, the money, but the day-to-day, man, is in the work that you do every single day. And I think, man, I've started to really embrace this concept of I'm going to do everything I can every single day to become the best me that I can possibly be. And we'll look back 5 to 10 years from now and see where I'm at, whether that's in my business, that's in my finances, that's in my career as a whole, my relationships with other people. So as long as I wake up every single day and have this mindset of by any means necessary, I'm going to be the best me that I can be, I know that 5 to 10 years from now, I'll look back and I'll be exactly where I need to be and where I want to be, and probably even better, because it was the day-to-day life and operations and systems that I had in place that got me to where I wanted to be. So that is what I'm going to achieve by any means necessary, is being the best me that I can be every day.
I love it, dude. All right, what's next for you? Where can people find you? I'll make sure all your socials are down below, but what's next for Alfonso?
Obviously, it's my birthday, man, and I had someone ask me last night what my goals were. I have 3 to 4 goals. I feel like maybe I'd probably say 4. The last one I'm a little hesitant on. Want to compete again? I don't know why. I just have this like itch to compete. It's been on my mind a lot. More, I feel like I'm doing it for the right reasons now. I just want to compete. Couldn't tell you why. I just really want to compete. Number 2, I want to move. I've been living in the same house for 5 years now. I'm extremely grateful to have been living in this house for a while. Just want to move, man. I want a new change of scenery. I want a new change of environment. How we touched on earlier about how your environment, I feel like this environment has served me well, but I need to get to that next level. So it's like, what environment do I need to put myself in to be that next level?
I think maybe Dallas. Maybe down here with me.
Oh, why'd you put that into the universe, bro? No comment. We'll see.
All right.
Number 3, I have a certain financial goal that I want to hit. I just feel like if I have this cash on hand, it'll be extremely beneficial just for different opportunities that present itself later down the road. It's been a while since I've had this number in my account, but I just want it to be straight liquid, no attachment to it. It's my money. I can do what I want with it. And number 4, man, I want to be more active on social media. I haven't been as active on social media, mostly because I haven't been in a terrible headspace, but I just haven't had much to say. And if I do feel like I say anything, it might come across as negative. So I
Yeah,
just want to be more out on social media and showcasing my day-to-day life, who I am as a person, making a lot more content in the sense of this, in the format of this. And also, man, just like teaching people and helping people in that aspect as well, man. I don't know everything. I'm not as good as I think I am, but also I'm not as bad as I think I am. I think I'm starting to realize as I'm getting older that I kind of know a few things that have helped me and that have served me that
for
can
sure.
definitely help younger people or even people within my position now. So I just want to do a better job at showcasing who I am and making more of a actual effort on posting on social media and being intentful with it.
I love it.
So yeah,
I
and if you want to find me on social media, it's Instagram Alfonso Lopez LL, and that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yep, I'll link it down below. But man, I certainly hope you do. I know we talk pretty frequently anyways, but I love keeping up with you and seeing everything that you're doing, man. So I hope you'll let everybody else in as well to let them follow along with the journey. But
I appreciate that, man. If anything, thank you for having me on. And we did it on my birthday, but I was excited to do it on my birthday one because I get to talk to you like my boy. So I was looking forward to it all day, man.
well, I'm glad. I'm sorry I took up so much of your birthday time. Now go have a birthday dinner. Go
Yeah,
enjoy yourself. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you did have a great birthday and love you, man. Always looking up to you, man. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, you know where to find me.
love you too, bro. I'll talk to you here soon.
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks for your time.
Of course, bro. See ya.